good evening. I'm Amritpal Singh. Welcome to World Today, a show on which we tell you what happened around the globe in the day just gone by in the past 24 hours. We'll talk about what the situation in China is. We'll also talk about the German polls where the Social Democrats have a razor-thin edge over their rivals, the CDU-CDU-S alliance of Angela Merkel, her Christian Democratic Party, even after she steps down from power after 16 years. But it's going to be a little while before we see a government in place because a difficult coalition has to be hammered out. Germany has been in coalition rule for quite some time now, and it looks like that the coalition rule will continue, but this time it would not be the center of right coalition. It could be a center of the left coalition, but yes, that could mean a lot for the economy and social spending. What its implications are, we'll talk about that, but first up, the headlines. It is the end of an era in Germany. 16 years of conservative-led rule under Angela Merkel comes to an end. Social Democrats narrowly win national election, claim clear mandate to lead a government for the first time since 2005. India's ambassador to China, Vikram Mistry, says China's continuing travel ban from India is unscientific approach. Travelers include thousands of students and separated families who've been waiting to return to China for more than a year now. Indian students protest outside the Chinese embassy in Delhi. The United States regained the Ryder Cup with a record 19-9 victory over Europe at the Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. Open champion Colin Morikawa claimed the winning half point in the fifth on Sunday's 12 single matches. Lewis Hamilton wins the Russian Grand Prix in Sochi amidst treacherous rain, becomes the first Formula One driver in history to record 100 victories. So those were the headlines. Let's begin the show with the big news we're tracking at this hour. India's ambassador to China, Vikram Mistry, has said that China's continuing travel ban on travelers from India is an unscientific approach. The travelers include thousands of students and separated families who have been waiting to return to China for more than a year now. He said such humanitarian and less complex issues need a more balanced and sensitive approach from the Chinese authorities. Shedding light on the prevailing tense bilateral relations at a dialogue organized by an Indian and a Chinese think tank last week, Mistry said that it's not limited only to diplomacy and geopolitics. He also said that India has also attempted to keep the trade and commercial relationship insulated from the current differences, for instance, by continuing to issue visas to Chinese business persons to visit India. However, the ambassador said that India is disappointed to see an unscientific approach with regard to several problems being faced by Indian students, businessmen, marine crew and exporters, etc. Prasar Bharati has been continuously taking up the issue of return of more than 20,000 Indian students enrolled in Chinese universities who are waiting to return to China. Most are in medical courses and are concerned that online programs arranged by the universities will not adequately prepare them, especially in a practical hands-on clinical subjects. They also have to pay full fee for online classes which are practically not of good quality due to multiple reasons. They also fear about their online degrees not being recognized. Meanwhile, Indian students, mostly medical students, demanding their return to China for the last 18 months, staged a peaceful protest outside the Chinese embassy in Delhi today. These students are students who are studying in Chinese universities and have not been able to rejoin their courses back in their universities in China, mostly medical students, because a lot of medical students study there. About 18 to 20,000 the number of students who study there were protesting outside the Chinese embassy, asking China to lift the travel ban and release restrictions on travel to China. We are now joined by our correspondent Anshuman Mishra, who is joining us from Beijing. Anshuman, good to see you once again. Give us a sense of, even as Indian students today gathered outside the Chinese embassy with placards in their hands saying, allow us to go back, travel back to China. Why is China so adamant on not lifting the travel restrictions?
Amrit, China has been always saying that the global situation of COVID-19 pandemic is not under control. It's not good to call international people through opening their borders. At the same time, we know that there have been many international flights coming to China from many countries, which include businessmen, students also from few countries, and other travelers. So that's why China has been getting imported COVID-19 cases. So let me try to put this in perspective why Mr. Mistry said that it's an unscientific approach. We know that China, through its harsh measures and tough COVID-19 protocols, strict lockdowns, so they were able to keep the COVID-19 numbers under check. Still, we see that there have been occasional outbreaks in various provinces, and every few months we can hear the news of certain outbreaks in certain provinces, and China will again go back to strict lockdowns in an attempt to keep its zero COVID policy. So experts are actually divided on this zero tolerance policy for COVID-19 because scientists also, even Chinese scientists and few doctors also have said that COVID will become like a normal any other disease or influenza or something with which we have to learn to live with. And that's what India and many other countries also have been saying. It's almost impossible to keep the cases to zero, numbers to zero, because we keep seeing that there are cases coming in China also, despite all these strict measures, border restrictions, flight restrictions, and everything. So experts say that why can't we put all the scientific measures in place? Vaccinated people may be allowed, and quarantine protocols are there. So why can't we follow all these things and we can allow international students at least who are missing on important years in their life, formative years in their life, they are wasting, and how will they cope up with this loss in their life lying ahead? So this is the reason why Mr. Mistry said that it is an unscientific approach. And on earlier occasions also, he has clearly mentioned this position. In fact, I should tell you, Amrit, that in July, the end of July, there was an international conference where around 20 ambassadors from different countries gathered to discuss on this particular issue, the mobility during COVID-19 times. And almost every other ambassador was of the view that mobility should not be hampered and there should be a rationale behind all these kind of restrictions. So this is how Ambassador Mistry has said it, and as you just now said, that after 18 months of wait, some students who are waiting for return to China, they are protesting in Delhi. So actually, it shows their frustration.
Anshuman, apart from the humanitarian aspect of the issue, the fact remains that if you don't allow exporters to come to your country, if you don't allow businessmen to come to your country, even students who contribute by paying hefty fee to Chinese universities, it is somewhere denting your economy. So even in self-interest, China, it makes sense for China to open up. And gone are the days when it was at the height. Numbers now are declining. The world slowly is learning to live with it. The world is opening up slowly. The Western world is opening up slowly. So is there a thinking churning going on within China to have a relook at this policy?
Of course, Amrit. Not long ago, maybe just 2-3 months ago, there was a debate in China among the intellectuals, academicians of Chinese society that we should go for a relook of this strict zero tolerance policy for COVID, because it's practically not possible to follow this kind of tough policy, and ultimately we have to learn to live with it. But then there came backlash, and mostly through Chinese social media, and in fact many of the voices, they termed such reconciliatory voices as anti-nationals or something like that. So these kind of debates are there, but at this moment I would say that they have been sort of like, they are silent now. Not only Chinese society, I mean, it's good to see such kind of debates here, which ultimately got silent, but there have been many calls by international experts also in this regard, that international mobility can be facilitated. And not only economy, as you mentioned, Amrit, it's also about the image of China, the soft power which China gathered through international students by becoming one of the major destinations for foreign students. So they are suffering a lot due to this policy of China. And if I tell you about today's update, so still we don't have any idea when China is going to relax these measures.
Okay. I want to come to other aspects. Of late, we've seen India, upping the ante. When we heard Ambassador Vikram Misri speak at that IDSA Sichuan University Virtual Summit, he raised many points. One of them was he accusing China of constantly shifting the goalposts and asking them to stop doing that. What was the message he was trying to convey?
So basically, India has been consistently saying that we need to go back to the status quo of April 2020. In fact, before the Galvan incident, wherever the troops were, both the countries should go back to that position so that things can become normal and peace and tranquility can be restored at the border. And since these things are taking a lot of time, during the negotiations, we have seen that after Pangong disengagement, it took another 6 months or maybe more than that to see another disengagement at Gogra. So with such kind of long held negotiations, it seems that there are certain points of disagreements, which India has been saying that we should stick to the facts and we should not confuse two issues. From Ambassador Misri's statements, we can make it out that there have been some sort of confusion between managing the border affairs, daily border management affairs, and sorting out larger boundary questions. So this is what it looks like China has been doing, which Ambassador Misri has pointed out. And also, important point is that he has pointed out this at Attract to Diplomacy events. I'm sure this must have been taken up during the formal diplomatic negotiations. So this is what he meant by shifting of goalposts.
All right. I also want to touch upon what Ambassador Misri said in that virtual dialogue. He said, and I'll quote him, "Viewing bilateral relations through the prism of relations with other countries is something which does not augur well for the relationship between the two countries. What was he referring to there?
Amrit, so if we talk about the regional situation, the geopolitics, specifically about the concept of Indo-Pacific, where four democratic nations, US, Japan, Australia, and India, they have come together for vaccine cooperation and other economic cooperation. And but China has been saying that. Looking at the Chinese state media and other commentaries, it can be made out that China has clearly shown its worry about this Quad mechanism, which all these countries have been always denying that this is not against any third country. But it seems that China is quite concerned, because every other day there would be some comments about Quad meeting and other activities. So this might be in my view, this might be one of the things which was mentioned by the ministry, that India and China has their intrinsic value in their relations, and it should not be seen from the prism of any other third country. And it equally goes well with Chinese side as well, how they see their relations with other countries in South Asia, especially if I say with Pakistan, because China should not see its relations with India with a prism of its relations with Pakistan. So it goes both the ways, and probably Ambassador Mistry was trying to say that the history of India-China dialogue has always been, it has always highlighted the intrinsic values in the bilateral relations, and that's how we can, both the countries can move ahead, and it will be in the for the benefit of not only for both the countries but for the region.
Absolutely. Even as his comments come ahead of the next round of military talks, they assume significance. In fact, the External Affairs Minister had, largely told his counterpart Wang Yi when he met on the sidelines, Anshuman, that it is imperative to resolve this fast, lest it affects the bilateral relationship, and it is incumbent upon both countries to take this relationship forward by resolving this as quickly as possible. Anshuman Mishra, many thanks for joining us for the moment and lending us your insights into the story. Thank you. And Germany, let's talk about Germany. Germany is embarking on a potentially lengthy search for its next government after the centre-left Social Democrats narrowly beat outgoing Chancellor Angela Merkel's centre-right bloc in an election that failed to set a clear direction for Europe's biggest economy under a new leader.
Germany's Social Democrats were set on Monday to start the process of trying to form a government after they narrowly won their first national election since 2005 to end 16 years of conservative-led rule under Angela Merkel. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor candidate for Germany's Social Democrats, said on Monday he had a mandate to lead the next government after a narrow election victory, saying he would seek to form a coalition with the Greens and Free Democrats.
3 election winners, and all of them together have brought about what we have been striving for a long time, namely a strong social democratic party that gets the mandate to lead the government in Berlin, in Schwerin, in Mecklenburg-Western Pomerania, and also here in the Federal Republic of Germany. The voters have been clearly spoken. They said who should form the next government. They strengthened 3 parties, the Social Democrats, the Greens and the FDP. This is therefore the clear mandate the citizens of this country have given. These 3 should form the next government.
Germany is weighing up a future without long-serving Chancellor Angela Merkel after the Bundestag elections on Sunday, with voters expressing their expectations under a new federal government.
I hope economic policy can be consistent and there can be more actions instead of just talking about protecting the environment. I also hope there could be more investment in education because it's the future and that young people can earn more for their pensions.
And I hope we get solved some problems like climate change and economic stuff. It's quite important that we have any solution for that the next time.
The centre-left Social Democrats won 25.7% of the vote, ahead of 24.1% for Merkel's CDU-CSU Conservative bloc, according to provisional results. The Greens came in at 14.8% and the Liberal Free Democrats were on 11.5%. The SDP's share of the vote surged by 5.2 percentage points from 4 years ago, while its main rivals suffered heavy losses. A total of 6,211 candidates from 47 political parties entered the race to fill at least 598 seats of the federal parliament. World Today Desk, DD India.
And to talk more about that and put that in perspective, I have with me Ashok Sajanha, former senior diplomat. Sir, many thanks for joining us. What does the election result mean? Because it's quite close. Does it mean a shift in the way politics in Germany will be held first?
Well, not exactly. I think, we had one coalition. In fact, it was the grand coalition, of 4 parties that has been ruling for the last 12 years. In fact, 12 out of the 16 years that Angela Merkel was heading the government in Germany. It was a grand coalition with the Christian Democratic Union, Christian Socialist Union, that is one bloc. And then the SPD, that is the Social Democratic Party, and the Free Democrats. They were the ones who were in the government, and also the Greens. So now what has happened is that since the Social Democratic Union, they had the largest number of votes. In fact, in the last election in 2017, they had about 32.9% of the votes. So they were the largest party. Although they had suffered a huge defeat after the Second World War, it was the biggest defeat that they suffered in 2017, in which their numbers came down from, by about 10% to 32.9%. Now, in this race, as you have just announced, Amrit, it has further fallen from 32% to about 24.7%. But what has also happened is that their alliance partner and the Vice Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, they have increased their numbers from about 20.9% to about 25.7%. So that makes the SDP the highest, the biggest party in the parliament. They've just sneaked a little ahead of the Christian Democratic Union, which was for the last 16 years being led by Angela Merkel. So where does that lead us? What the SDP says is that now the Christian Democratic Union should sit in the opposition because they have lost the confidence of the people.
Right.
And that there should be 3 parties out of the 4-party grand coalition. So what I would say is it will be a continuation of the coalition, but from center right, it will move a little to center left. Amrit.
So exactly, that was my question, that, minus the Conservatives, when you have the Social Democrats, the Greens and the Free Democrats, would there be a slight shift towards the left, increase in, say, social spending, or now with the Greens increasing their vote share, demanding more, spending on climate change, etc. So could we see more left? But however, there still remains a contradiction that the Free Democrats remain the pro-business or the right in this coalition.
You're absolutely right. The Free Democrats have always been in favor of the Christian Democratic Union, the more conservative, slight right of the center, and the Greens have always been in support of the SDP. So, in terms of ideologies and policies, I would see very little difference. Okay. Because, Mr. Olaf Scholz, as I mentioned, he's the Vice Chancellor. He's also the Minister of the Exchequer, the Finance Minister. So he has been handling the economic policies, and as you showed, some of the voters there, they are really looking at, better economic performance as far as the country is concerned. I think what has really done the CDU in, so to say, why they've not been able to perform is because of a number of issues. First is the COVID-19, and the people have had some problems and difficulties with the manner in which, governance on this has handled. Then after that, we've also had the floods in a large number of cities. We have seen on Indian TV also showing absolutely unprecedented floods taking place in a large number of cities in Germany. Huge areas have been inundated and flooded. And before that, you would recall that, when there was the refugee crisis in 2015, that also really resulted in a very huge, big dent as far as the popularity of the CDU is concerned. So all these things have progressively dented the popularity of the CDU, and most of the votes have gone basically to the SDP, to the Social Democrats, and also to the Greens. Another aspect, although they don't really count for anywhere in the government, is that the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, that party has suffered. That's an ultra-right party.
Right.
That has suffered a huge loss. And also the extreme left party has also suffered a huge loss. So I think the governance is going to be basically a centrist position that has been taken for the last many, many years, but without the inner squabbling that used to take place between the CDU and the SDP in the past.
Okay. So what happens to the issues that these elections, that prominently figured in these elections as far as the voters go, on which they are said to have cast their vote, say climate change, social spending, minimum wages? What would be the new government's, what would is in your analysis would be the stand of the new government on these issues?
I think much more sympathetic to what the voters have been asking for as far as climate change is concerned. Of course, the Greens coming back with a bigger majority will have a bigger say. In fact, they had, I will not say hopes, but pretensions of getting their own chancellor candidate, because just about a couple of months ago, their voting support had risen up to, about 27-28%. So they had also named their own chancellor candidate. But now, of course, we see that they have, come down to about 14% odd. Of course, it's a much, bigger improvement from what they did in 2017. So they will have a much bigger role to play. But on this, and since it is left of the center, it's Social Democrats. So even as far as the wages and the economy and the other aspects are concerned, I think it is going to be much more favorable to the people. But I think the most important takeaway, Amrit, in my view, is that it is going to be a continuity in governance, and there are going to be no big jolts and shocks as far as the European project is concerned. I think that is going to be on stream, and particularly now we see that the French also going in for elections in the coming April. So I think that will also be an important election to watch. But as far as the Europe project is concerned, I think Germany has given it a thumbs up, saying that its policies in support. And this is what Olaf Scholz, the leader of the SDP, who's most likely to become the next chancellor, that is what he has said, that he is fully in support of a strong and a vibrant Europe.
How lengthy could be the process of hammering out a coalition, or is it clear that it will be a three-party coalition and we could soon have a government in place?
Well, it should not take very long. It should definitely not take as long as it had taken, about 12 years ago when Angela Merkel was trying to put up her grand coalition. Because here the numbers are quite clear. If I were to talk in numbers, what has come out so far The SDP has got about 206 seats. The Greens have got about 112 or so. And the Free Democrats have got about 92, which makes all of it about 400 seats out of the 600 plus that are available. The Christian Democrats have got about 196, and then the rest is with AFD and the others. So I think this three-member coalition is very comfortably placed, so it should not take them all that long. Okay. And while the leader of the CDU, Mr. Laschet, has also staked his claim to form the government, but since his is not the largest party in the parliament, in the Bundestag, so he will not really be called on first to try his hand at forming a government. So I think it should be reasonably easy, because the supporters of the SDP, both the SDP itself and the Greens are in quite significant majority as far as this three-member coalition is concerned. And the Free Democrats, with just about 92 members, will not really be able to call the shots in that way. Now, the problem, in all these coalitions has always been that the smaller parties have small numbers, but they have big ambitions and they have big demands. But I think here they would be able to, since they've already been working in the government together, so they should be able to resolve the differences and come to an acceptable accommodation without too much spending too much time.
True. Ambassador Sajanhar, before I let go of you, my final question says the curtains come down on Angela Merkel's tenure. Papers are writing Merkel's departure, end of an era. How would the world, how would the Germans look back at Angela Merkel? In fact, many young Germans remember her as the leader because she's been there for 16 years. I think she's the longest serving after Helmut Kohl as the Chancellor. For many, especially of the young generation, she's been the leader of Germany. So how would her legacy be remembered?
Well, you're very right. I think it's not only the Germans, it's the world over. She has represented the face of Germany. When you speak about Germany, it was Angela Merkel. And she was a no-frills, very staid and sober and solid leader. And you see, the two leaders, both of the SDP as well as of the CDU, they have also tried to portray themselves in the image of Merkel, because that is what they know sells. So both, the SDP leader, Olaf Scholz, is also going to model himself on Angela Merkel. But Angela Merkel is going to be missed the world over. Her steady hand, her solid hand in dealing with the issues, both domestic. And she also really represented not only the face of Germany, but also the face of Europe, because she was a staunch advocate and supporter of the European project. And between France and Germany, they really were able to steer this project on an even keel, notwithstanding all the challenges that they had to confront. So she is going to be missed by Germany, by the world, and I dare say by India. The Prime Minister has had a very positive relationship with her. And just a few days ago, both of them had spoken about how to deal with the evolving situation in Afghanistan. So she is a leader who is going to be missed very much, not only by her own people, but also by the world.
And her pragmatic approach to issues and the ease with which she negotiated the challenges and the contradictions within is something that the world would remember. Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, many thanks for joining us and lending us your insights this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving on to Iceland now. Iceland looked to have elected a women majority parliament, but that's changing with the recount of votes. As the recount shows, there will still be more men than women in the chamber, though marginally higher, according to the state broadcaster. 30 women were elected to the 63-seat parliament in Saturday's election, up from 24 in the previous votes. Earlier results before the recount late on Sunday had shown 33 women were elected. Only 3 countries around the world, that's Rwanda, Cuba and Nicaragua, have more women than men in the parliament, while Mexico, the United Arab Emirates have a 50-50 split, according to data from the Inter-Parliamentary Union. In Europe, Sweden and Finland have 47% and 46% women representation in parliament, respectively. But in any case, the women there have performed really well. 33-30 is quite an even keel, so it's almost close to about 50%, 48%. So women have generally done well, but the recount shows that the earlier number of 33 that was first came up has now gone down to 30. So there will be 33 men and 30 women in the new parliament of Iceland. And let's now take a quick look at stories from across the globe in our segment News at a Glance.
Hundreds of Haitians marched in the capital of Port-au-Prince on Sunday to protest against deportations of Haitian migrants by United States. The U.S. has started flying out migrants this week from a Texas border town. The Department of Homeland Security has reported of nearly 30,000 migrants encountered in the border area in the past 2 weeks, with some 2,000 of them being expelled to Haiti. Anger has been rising in United States against the crackdown on migrants. Many of the Haitians arriving at the U.S. border had previously lived in Brazil and Chile, while others have transited through the South American countries. Meanwhile, the Mexican government said on Sunday that it will resume flights to Port-au-Prince starting next week for Haitian migrants who want to return home. In the Gaza Strip, the first phase of the reconstruction process will soon begin 4 months after Israel's deadly offensive. The reconstruction plan was set by Gaza's Ministry of Public Works and Housing, the Qatar Committee for Reconstruction of Gaza and other international parties. Gaza's Hamas-run government says Israeli airstrikes destroyed about 2,200 homes during the 11-day conflict and damaged 37,000 others. Some homes in Israel were damaged by rockets launched by Islamist organization Hamas and other Gaza militant groups. About 1,800 destroyed homes will be rebuilt in the first phase of work, according to Naji Sarhan, the Deputy Minister for Housing and Public Works of Gaza. In Ukraine, hundreds of people took part in a climate march in the capital city, Kiev, to demand more effort from the government to combat climate change. The activists carried banners and flags, while some dressed in costumes of animals in danger due to worsening climate situation and humans causing it. Protesters called on authorities to increase funding in the state budget for measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, adapt to climate change and other environmental measures. The protest came just weeks before a major United Nations climate summit in Glasgow, Scotland. Meanwhile, a UN climate panel has warned of dangerously increasing global warming in the world, which will further cause climate disruptions for decades to come. World Today Desk, DD India.
And let's talk about sports now. Mithali Raj's Indian side ended Australia's remarkable 26-match winning run in ODI cricket. Yastika Bhatti and the rest of the batters stepped up as India scripted their highest ever successful run chase in the women's ODI on Sunday. There were multiple heroes for India in what ended up as their highest ever run chase in the history of women's ODI cricket. Fittingly, it was the legendary Jhula Goswami who hit the winning runs, and India players celebrated the remarkable victory from the dugout.
India breaks the winning streak of Australian women in one-day internationals with 2 wickets win in the third ODI at Mackay on 26th of September. Indian women recorded their highest ever successful run chase in ODIs by overhauling the 265-run target with 3 balls to spare. With putting a brilliant performance, the Indian Eves created history by putting an end to Australia women's record 26-match unbeaten streak. India had lost their second ODI by the narrowest of margins. However, this time the Indian women's team gave a brilliant performance throughout the innings and stopped the Australian juggernaut. Shafali Verma, and Yastika Bhatia were the standout in the chase, whereas Deepti Sharma and Sneh Rana too played crucial knocks. Jhulan Goswami, who's almost played 2 decades of international cricket, retained the Player of the Match title. Soon after India's victory on Sunday, Mandhana tweeted a picture of the towering figure of Goswami surrounded by her, Harmanpreet Kaur, Shafali Verma and Harleen Deol. In the caption, Mandhana said, "What a win and an amazing performance by this legend." With this win, Indian Eves look even more confident on the field and will hopefully continue to upkeep their winning streak. Sports Desk, DD India.
And the United States have regained their Ryder Cup with a record 19-9 victory over Europe at the Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. Open champion Colin Morikawa claimed the winning half point in the fifth of Sunday's 12 single matches as home side raced to the 14.5 points they needed. Rory McIlroy, Lee Westwood and Ian Poulter, Europe's only winners in the singles, were in tears as they showed the emotion of what will be a chastening defeat. Around them, American players celebrated with Brooks Koepka downing a beer thrown to him from the fans after he completed a 2-1 victory on the 17th green to booming chants of USA from a 40,000 strong home crowd. There had already been big wins for Patrick Cantlay, Scotty Scheffler and Bryson DeChambeau amid a carnival atmosphere by Lake Michigan, where Dustin Johnson became the first American to win all 5 matches at a Ryder Cup since 1979. Lewis Hamilton won the Russian Grand Prix and achieved his 100th Formula One Grand Prix victory in Sochi amidst treacherous rain on Sunday. The 7-time world champion reached the unprecedented century in his Mercedes after being stuck on 99 since the British Grand Prix in July. Hamilton also took over the championship lead from Max Verstappen, who finished second after starting the race last on the grid. It was a heartbreak for Lando Norris, who was just 3 laps away from his first Formula One win, but rain ended his dream in a cruel manner and he ended up in the 7th place. Carlos Sainz finished the 3rd spot, while Daniel Ricciardo and Valtteri Bottas completed the top 5 in the race. Norris had fended off Hamilton for a long and drove beautifully, but started struggling in the last 3 laps, with Hamilton having fresher tyres and the rain falling down. The Mercedes driver overtook Norris in the 51st lap and took it home. Hamilton thanked the crowd for the turnout while he was talking after the race. Norris very sportingly even came to him and congratulated him on his 100th. Arsenal's revival gathered pace as Tottenham's recent decline continued in an entertaining North London derby at Emirates Stadium. Arsenal won the match 3-1. Just 3 weeks ago, Spurs sat atop the Arsenal bottom after their worst start to a league season for 67 years. However, the Gunners have been rejuvenated by 6 summer signings and the return to fitness of a number of key players. Arsenal struck 3 times in the opening 35 minutes as Emily Smith-Rowe opened the floodgates before Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang rounded off a brilliant team move and Bukayo Saka rolled home the 3rd. Son Heung-min pulled a goal back for the visitors 11 minutes from time, but it was too little too late for Nuno Espirito Santos' men. A new kind of sport, esports, is on the rise in India, and it's not the same thing as online gaming. Esports is a sport requiring competitive gameplay, a tournament or a league format, and use of skill, most often physical skill. It has gained popularity with the youth, consequently has become an attractive option for brands. Esports will make its debut at the Asian Games 2022 with medals being awarded in 8 games. Esports was a demonstration event at the 2018 Asian Games in Jakarta. More in this report.
Esports is a kind of sport in which competitors compete using video games in a multiplayer environment. It has effectively dominated the Indian market due to extensive marketing and advertising on different internet streaming platforms such as YouTube and Twitch. Although the esports business is old, few people realize it has existed for over a decade. Many knew after it gained popularity in India lately due to increased developers and business people interest in the Indian market.
Around the year 2018, when mobile penetration in India grew a lot thanks to Jio, a lot of mobile games came into the market. And one of the categories of mobile games that started to grow was a category called first-person shooter category. From the year 2018 to 2020, and then during the pandemic and now in 2021, the first-person shooter category had games like PUBG, which were later relaunched as BGMI Battlegrounds Mobile India, which Krafton brought to India, and grew almost to 50 to 75 million users in no time, in less than 2 months. So what has happened is that the gaming market has grown from almost 250 to 300 million gamers to now 450 million gamers, and it is stated to cross 500 million gamers by the end of this year or early next year. A large part of this gaming audience in India is first-person shooter category, which involves games like BGMI, Free Fire, Call of Duty, Valorant, Among Us. And these games are the games which have proven multiple things in the Indian market. Things like people are spending more time playing these games, people are forming different communities playing these games, and most importantly, gaming industry has started to make a lot of revenue, and this has started because of this category.
India's esports industry. India was placed 16th on the Forbes list, indicating that the sector is worth billions of dollars. A decade earlier, India's internet gaming industry was underdeveloped with just 25 developers. Today, the nation is home to approximately 250 game developers. Several industry heavyweights have previously invested in India's gaming business, including Tencent, Nazara, Paytm and Alibaba. The majority of income earned in sports comes from companies such as Oppo and Asus. India has hosted some of the most important esports events, including the PUBG Mobile Series 2019 and the Electronic Sports League, in which Dota 2 players from all over the globe competed. Today, India is globally known for esports, and Counter-Strike Global Offensive plays a significant role in it. Dota 2 is the first esport game to have conquered the Indian market. It is a multiplayer online combat game in which 2 teams of 5 players each compete.
Game streaming is basically a platform where anybody who's playing a game can stream their game so that others can watch him or her play. It is like an influencer sort of a content-driven category. It's growing very fast. More than 150 to 200 million people are watching other people's play money, and it's so exciting. Why do people watch it? But because they learn, they enjoy the entire gaming. And Router, Loco, YouTube, Turnip, these are the platforms which are building the game streaming industry. But interestingly, what is happening is esports in India is now stated to grow very, very fast. If you look around, you would see so many esports tournaments being organized every week. There are so many esports teams in India which is coming up, and esports is almost a career like sports. A lot of people are now picking up gaming to build a career. They are representing a team, they are participating in tournaments, winning prize money. And here is the interesting thing. Esports is now a part of Asian Games. It was introduced in Asian Games 2018, but in Asian Games 2022, esports is a medal sport, which means we will have gamers from India who will represent India in Asian Games by playing games, by participating in esports, and they can win medals for us.
Future of esports in India. Though at a nascent stage, the esports market size in India has quickly scaled to 3 billion in fiscal year 2021, and it is expected to reach 11 billion by fiscal year 2025. However, the sport has a much larger economic impact. It is expected to generate an economic value of around 100 billion rupees between now and fiscal year 2025. 1.5 million players, 85 million viewers, 20 plus broadcasters and several brands, organizers and publishers will collectively define the esports market in India by fiscal year 2025. Presently, about 4% of mobile games on the Play Store are from Indian publishers. As Indian game developers transition from developing social games to multiplayer games, Indian developers are expected to create games that are better suited for esports tournaments. The number of Indian gaming studios have grown 5 times since 2015. There are over 14 esports broadcast platforms in 2021, which are expected to cross 20 platforms by 2025, while current viewership is 17 million. Over 85 million unique viewers will watch esports tournaments in the country by 2025. The growth in startup investments. Competitive esports gaming has been on the rise in India and other parts of the world. In today's time and age, when the world is in a global crisis brought about by the pandemic, it is surprising that online gaming is one of the pillars that holds the economy up. So more and more investors put their money on digital enterprises, leading to a rise in esports startup investments. Sports Desk, DD India.
And now, stories that make news but not headlines in our segment Beyond Headlines.
An electronic device has been developed by a French company that uses sensors to spot an obstacle in the path of a visually impaired person and gives them the information they need to go around it. Till date, the device is being used by nearly 400 people in France, with a handful of models in use in Switzerland, Germany, Belgium and Italy. The device is designed to work out the user's trajectory and only let them know about obstacles directly in their path. Former US President Jimmy Carter is the latest political figure to be added on Tidal Wave Comics' Political Power series. The glossy will be released on 29th of September, days before Carter's 97th birthday on 1st of October. The biographical book showcases Carter's 75-year love affair with his wife Rosalind, his road to the White House and his one-term presidency. Tidal Wave Comics has been producing politician profiles for over 11 years and have also featured President Obama, President Biden and President Donald Trump. The Balmoral Show, Northern Ireland's largest agricultural show, welcomed visitors on the first time since 2019. The event had been cancelled last year due to the pandemic. This year, the show had been postponed from May until September due to the coronavirus restrictions still in place at the time. Visitors have been asked to show their COVID-19 vaccination status on a negative test in order to enter the event. Visitors to the popular event were happy to be back. In Bolivia's Amazon jungle, fishermen who once angled for rare pink river dolphins are now working together with researchers to assure the species' survival in a high-tech bid by scientists to better understand the dolphin and its needs. Scientists with global environmental group WWF and Bolivian NGO Fonacua recently tagged 4 of the freshwater dolphins in the Iquilo River using satellite technology that allows fishermen to use a cell phone app to report their locations. France's Spider-Man navigated through metal railings and glass windows on the facade of the Alto Tower near Paris to urge world governments to do more to combat climate change. Climber Alain Robert took 50 minutes to reach the top of the 160-meter skyscraper at the La Défense Business District. The climb comes 5 weeks before the UN COP26 summit in Glasgow, which aims to secure more ambitious climate action from world leaders to drastically cut the greenhouse gas emissions heating the planet. World Today Desk, DD India.
Let's now take a look at all the events that took place today in history.
In 1922, on this day, King Constantine I of Greece was abdicated. He was king from 1913 to 1917 and from 1920 to 1922. A military revolt cost him his throne for the second time when Greece failed to defeat Turkey after World War I. On this day in the year 1970, Jordan's King Hussein and Yasser Arafat, leader of the Palestine Liberation Movement, signed an agreement in Cairo to end Jordan's civil war. On the same day in 1996, Afghanistan's Taliban movement captured the capital Kabul and hanged the former president Najibullah. In 1997, on this day, internet search engine Google was founded. On this day in the year 2014, Japan's Mount Ontake erupted, injuring at least 8 people and leaving more than 250 stranded. World Today Desk, DD India.
That's it then in World Today. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.